Are your hearts ready for a story that will shake your beliefs about love and resilience? A very good day to all of you, our dear listeners. Once again, join me on a journey that will test the fortitude of one woman. They say a family name is an honor. But what if the name you dreamed of carrying becomes the very chain of your suffering? This is the story of Mei Lin, a woman stripped of everything, but from the ashes of her shattered dreams, she found the light of her true worth. The music stopped, or perhaps it only stopped for Mei Lin. The once joyful classical music from the sound system was replaced by a deafening silence. All eyes inside the luxurious hall of the Go residence in Bukit Timah were now fixed on the center, on the table where she stood with her husband and her mother-in-law, Mrs. Eleanor Go. On the glass dining table, between the expensive silverware and crystal flutes of champagne, lay a folder, a white folder that, to Mei Lin, was more terrifying than a death sentence. "Sign it, Mei Lin." Mrs. Go's voice was as cold as ice, devoid of emotion, but full of power. Each word was like a dagger piercing Mei Lin's heart. The smiles on the guests' lips vanished, replaced by judgmental stares and whispers. She felt her hands grow cold. Her eyes searched for her husband, Marcus, who stood beside her. "Marcus," she called, almost in a whisper. What does this mean?" But Marcus didn't look at her. His eyes were fixed on the Italian marble floor, as if there was something incredibly important there he couldn't look away from. The clenching of his fists was the only sign of his inner turmoil. "Don't you understand?" Mrs. Go spoke again, a hint of impatience in her tone. "Divorce papers. I'm kicking you out of this house, out of this family." Mei Lin heard a loud crash, which she thought was thunder from the approaching storm outside, but it wasn't. It was the sound of her world shattering. 5 years. For 5 years she had served, endured, and loved this family. For 5 years she had tried to be worthy of the Go name, only for this night. But why? Why? Mei Lin's voice broke. "I haven't done anything wrong. Our children, Marcus." At last, Marcus spoke, but his voice was weak and faint. "Mei Lin, just do as you're told." "Do as I'm told," Mei Lin replied, almost shouting, unable to hold back the building anger and pain. 5 years, Marcus. And you just tell me to do as I'm told? Fight for me." Mrs. Go raised a hand, and in an instant, it was as if everyone regained their composure. "You don't belong here, Mei Lin, and you never will. A rag will always be a rag, even if you place it inside a palace." The old woman turned to her son. "Choose, Marcus. That woman from the gutter who can give you nothing, or the name and wealth of this family. Your future." A few seconds of silence passed, which felt like an eternity to Mei Lin. Every beat of her heart was a prayer. "Choose me, Marcus. Choose me and our children." Slowly, Marcus shook his head, still not looking at her. And with that simple gesture, Mei Lin knew the answer. The last piece of her hope crumbled. "Security," Mrs. Go commanded loudly. 2 uniformed security guards quickly approached them. Mei Lin's arms were gently held. She didn't struggle anymore. There was no strength left in her. She was like a limp rag doll, with no will of her own. As she was being dragged out of the hall, she saw her 2 children crying in the care of a helper. "Mummy, Mummy," her eldest cried out. "My children." She tried to break free, but the grip on her tightened. "Don't you dare bring your filth near my grandchildren," Mrs. Go's voice came from behind her. "They are Go's. They will remain here." And that was the final blow. They had taken her husband, her dignity, and now, her children. She was pushed out of the mansion's grand doors. Just as they opened, a heavy downpour began. In an instant, her expensive designer gown was soaked, a gown that was only lent to her, that wasn't truly hers. She ran back to the door, pounding on it with all her might. "Marcus, please, our children, don't take them from me." But no one answered. Until slowly, the massive gates of the Go residence closed before her. The sound of its closing was final and cruel. She was left alone outside, in the middle of the pouring rain, hugging herself. The once festive lights from the mansion now seemed to mock her. She had no money, no phone, nowhere to go, and most importantly, she no longer had her children. She fell to her knees on the wet pavement, her tears mixed with the rain. The pain was so deep, so intense, she could barely breathe. She stayed there for several minutes, shivering from the cold and the weight of her failure, until a pair of headlights from a car shone on her. An old but familiar Toyota Corolla stopped beside her. The window slowly rolled down. From inside, a face full of concern peered out. "Mei Lin." "Ah, girl." The voice was full of warmth and love, something she hadn't heard in a long time. "Come, let's go home." The first thing that woke Mei Lin was not the sound of an alarm clock or a helper knocking to get the children ready. It was the rays of the morning sun slowly penetrating through the louvered windows, and the smell of Nanyang Kopi coming from the kitchen. For a moment, she was disoriented. The soft mattress and silk sheets of the Bukit Timah bungalow were replaced by a simple mattress on a metal frame and a thin but clean blanket. She slowly sat up, and the pain of the previous night came back like a powerful, drowning wave. The expulsion, the rain, the closing gates, and the cries of her children. She clutched her chest, her heart feeling as if it were being squeezed. Where are they? What are they doing? The thought of them being alone in that cold, loveless mansion was enough to drive her mad. "You're awake, girl." The voice of Auntie Sue was gentle, a safe harbor in the middle of her raging emotions. She entered the small room carrying a mug of hot coffee. "Here, have some coffee first. I know you're going through a lot." Mei Lin took the mug, its warmth slightly soothing her trembling hands. "Auntie, my children." Auntie Sue sat on the edge of the bed and stroked her back. "I know, Mei Lin, I know they're on your mind. But to fight for them, you first need to be strong. You need to pull yourself together first." In the following days, Auntie Sue's HDB flat in Bidok became her sanctuary. With her aunt's help, she began to sort through her belongings, the few clothes she had managed to stuff into a bag before she was completely thrown out. While sorting through an old storage chest, she noticed a small, folded notebook at the bottom. It was dusty, and the pages were slightly yellowed, but when she opened it, a familiar handwriting greeted her. It was the writing of her Ma, Lim. It was her old recipe notebook. She slowly flipped through the pages. There were recipes for Hainanese chicken rice, for bak kut teh, for curry fish head, but it was the recipe on the very last page that caught her attention. Written in beautiful script, Ma Lim's special heritage stew. Along with the recipe was a small note, "To my dearest granddaughter, Mei Lin. This recipe is not just about ingredients and cooking methods. It is the story of our family, a symbol of resilience. With every bite, may you remember that no matter how bitter life gets, there is always sweetness to be found if you know how to wait and persevere." She couldn't stop her tears from falling. Her grandmother's words felt like an embrace from the past. Auntie Sue saw her crying while holding the notebook. She smiled with a hint of sadness. The heritage stew. That recipe is what sustained my siblings and me when we were young. Your Ama, despite our poverty, found a way to combine simple ingredients to create something so delicious. That is her legacy to us, Mei Lin. Not money, not land, but the legacy of resilience. Mei Lin stared at the recipe. The ingredients were simple, easily found at the Bedok market. An idea suddenly entered her mind. A small ray of hope. "Auntie," she said, her voice filled with new determination. "Can I borrow a little money for capital?" The next day, with Auntie Sue's help, Mei Lin set up a small foldable table and a few stools at the void deck of their HDB block. Using an old wok and a portable gas stove, she started to cook. The aroma of the simmering heritage stew, a combination of sweet, savory, and spicy notes, slowly wafted through the air. Her hands trembled as she ladled the first batch. She was full of doubt. What if no one buys it? What if my cooking isn't good? What if this is just a huge mistake? But when she remembered her children's faces, the longing for their hugs, all her fears vanished, replaced by a fierce determination. "This is for you, my children. Mummy will fight." An uncle selling vegetables was the first to stop. What's that smelling so good?" "Heritage stew, uncle," Mei Lin answered, smiling despite her nervousness. "Would you like to try some?" The uncle bought a portion, and after one bite, his eyes widened. "Wah, so shock. I'll buy all the rest." That was the beginning. Word quickly spread about Mei Lin's delicious heritage stew. Within a week, there was a queue in front of her small stall every afternoon. Every single dollar she earned, she carefully set aside. This was her war chest. One afternoon, while she was busy serving her customers, a sleek, black, luxury car suddenly stopped in front of her stall. The car looked like an alien spaceship on the simple street of the HDB estate. The passenger door opened, and a woman stepped out. She wore an expensive business suit, her hair was tied in a perfect bun, and her posture exuded power and confidence. The woman paused, scanned the area, and her eyes landed on the small, handwritten sign Mei Lin had made, "Starlight Kitchen." Then, her eyes turned to Mei Lin, with a mix of intrigue, as if she were searching for something. All of Mei Lin's customers fell silent. Conversations dwindled to whispers. All eyes were on the woman who had emerged from the expensive car. She was like an eagle that had suddenly landed among sparrows, beautiful, dangerous, and completely out of place. She walked towards Mei Lin's stall, each step carrying weight and self-assurance. She stopped right in front of the small table, and her sharp, analytical eyes stared at Mei Lin. "Good afternoon," Mei Lin greeted, trying to hide the tremor in her voice. She felt a certain unease. This woman reminded her of Mrs. Go. They had the same aura of power, of luxury. Another person from the world she was trying to escape. The woman didn't answer immediately. Her gaze dropped to the wok where the stew's sauce was simmering. That scent seemed to be what had brought her there. "What is this called?" she asked, her voice direct and to the point. "Heritage stew," Mei Lin replied. "One order," the woman commanded. Mei Lin moved quickly, her hands seeming to have a mind of their own. She took a clean container and carefully ladled a portion. As she did, she could feel the woman's intense stare, as if she were scrutinizing not just the food she was cooking, but her entire being. She handed over the order. The woman took it and picked up a spoon. With her first taste, Mei Lin noticed a slight change in the woman's expression. The previously stern and cold face seemed to soften for a moment. A spark flashed in her eyes, not just of liking the taste, but something deeper, like a long-forgotten memory. But just as quickly as it appeared, that expression vanished. She looked back at Mei Lin. "Who is the original owner of this recipe?" Mei Lin was surprised by the question. "My grandmother, my Ma Lim." The woman nodded, as if confirming something in her mind. "This has potential," she said, not as a compliment, but as a professional assessment. "A lot of potential." She took out her wallet and handed over payment, a full $50 note. "Oh, this is too much," Mei Lin said, looking for change. "One moment, please. Keep the change." The woman cut her off. She placed a small, white card on the table. "My name is Denise Leong. I'm the CEO of Asia Delights Holdings." CEO. That word hit Mei Lin like a slap. She was a CEO. She came from Marcus's world, from Mrs. Go's world, the world that had crushed her. "I want to partner with you," Denise said directly. "I want to bring this heritage stew to the market. Give it proper packaging, the right marketing, and place it in every major supermarket in the country." Mei Lin was stunned. She didn't know what to say. Denise's words seemed to come from another universe. Partnership, supermarkets, marketing. All she wanted was to earn enough money to get her children back. "I'm not selling pity, Miss Tan," Denise continued, seeming to read the hesitation on her face. "I see a good product and a good business opportunity. This is a business proposal, nothing personal." The offer was dazzling. Was this the answer to her prayers? The way to prove in court that she could provide for her children? But along with hope, fear returned. She remembered the judgmental eyes of the Go family, the rules of high society, the politics within a large corporation. She remembered how she was treated like a mere decoration, something without a voice of its own. She didn't want to go back there. Mei Lin shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. "I'm sorry, Miss Leong, but I don't think I can." "Why not?" "I just want a simple life," Mei Lin said, her voice trembling. "I don't want to go back to the world of the rich, the world of business. I was hurt too much there. All I want is to be with my children." Denise Leong stared at her for a few moments. There was no judgment in her eyes, only a deep understanding. She didn't insist. She didn't try to convince her. She turned and began to walk back to her car. Mei Lin thought that was the end of it. But before getting in, Denise looked back one more time. "Your worth is not dictated by other people, Miss Tan," Denise said, her voice clear and firm. "Call me when you're ready to dictate it yourself." She got into the car, and the black vehicle quickly disappeared down the road, leaving Mei Lin standing there, stunned, holding the cool, expensive business card in her palm. On one side, engraved in gold letters, Denise Leong, CEO, Asia Delights Holdings. That night, Mei Lin sat inside the flat, staring at the business card. Denise's words played over and over in her mind. "Your worth is not dictated by other people." Suddenly, Auntie Sue's old landline telephone rang. They looked at each other. It was rare for anyone to call that line. Mei Lin answered. "Hello, is this Mei Lin Tan?" asked a cold, professional voice on the other end. "I am Mr. Chen, the legal counsel for Mr. Marcus Go. I'm calling to formally inform you that my client, through his mother Mrs. Eleanor Go, has filed a petition for full custody of your children." Mei Lin dropped the phone. "The primary basis for the petition," the voice continued from the floor, "is your current state of financial instability, which makes you an unfit parent." Financial instability, unfit parent. Those words from the lawyer echoed in Mei Lin's mind all night, louder than thunder, sharper than any of the painful words Mrs. Go had thrown at her. This was no longer about her dignity. It was no longer about her broken heart. This was about her children, and she would not let them be taken from her without a fight. The next morning, Before the sun had even risen, she was holding Denise Leong's business card. Her hands were shaking, not with fear anymore, but with a burning determination. She dialed the number on the old telephone. Each beep sounded like a hammer forging her new destiny. It rang only once before someone answered. "This is Denise Leong." The voice was wide awake and alert, even at this early hour. Mei Lin took a deep breath. "Miss Leong, this is Mei Lin Tan." There was a few seconds of silence on the other end. "I was expecting your call," Denise said, without a hint of surprise or arrogance, as if she had known all along. "I'm in," Mei Lin said, her voice cracked but her resolve firm. "I accept your offer." "Good," was Denise's simple reply. "My office, Asia Delights Tower in Raffles Place. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. sharp. Don't be late." And she hung up. The next day, for the first time in many years, Mei Lin returned to the CBD. But this time, she wasn't the wife hiding in Marcus Go's shadow. Standing in front of the towering skyscraper of Asia Delights, wearing the most decent dress Auntie Sue had lent her, she felt a familiar fear. This place, people like Denise Leong, were symbols of the world that had rejected her. But when she remembered why she was there, her children, she lifted her head and stepped inside. The following weeks were a whirlwind. Mei Lin's world, which once revolved only between the kitchen and the living room, suddenly expanded. Denise introduced her to a world of board meetings, market research, and branding strategies. At first, she felt like a foreigner on another planet. Terms like supply chain, profit margin, and brand identity were words she didn't understand. In one meeting, while discussing the product's name, Mei Lin felt voiceless. The marketing executives suggested English names they thought were classier and more marketable. "No," Mei Lin said suddenly, surprising everyone, including herself. "This recipe has a story. It came from my grandmother. It came from my family. It needs to have a soul." She looked at Denise. "My name is Mei Lin. It reminds me of the starlight. I want this to be a light of hope." Starlight. Starlight Kitchen. Denise looked at her for a few moments, then nodded to the marketing team. "You heard her. The brand is Starlight Kitchen. Make it work." That was the first time Mei Lin felt power. The power to decide for herself. From that day on, she poured everything into it. Every night, after work at Asia Delights, she would go home to Bedok and study the documents given to her. She learned how to read sales reports. She learned how to negotiate with suppliers. Her hands, once accustomed only to cooking, learned to hold a pen to sign important contracts. Then came the day of the grand launch. In a large event hall, a beautiful booth stood. In the center, written in large letters, Starlight Kitchen. The packaging, which she herself had helped design, was elegant and told a story. Media and food bloggers flocked to it. Mei Lin stood in a corner, watching everything. She wore a simple business dress that Denise had bought for her. She was no longer the Mei Lin who cried in the rain. The woman standing there had a new spark in her eyes. "Congratulations, Mei Lin," Denise said, approaching her. "You did it." Mei Lin smiled, a genuine smile that came from the heart. "Thank you, Denise. Thank you for the opportunity." For the first time, Mei Lin saw Denise smile, a small but sincere smile. "You're the brilliant one, Mei Lin. I didn't give you anything. I just helped you bring out what was already inside you." That evening, before heading home, Mei Lin stopped by a toy store. Using her own ATM card, which contained her first salary, she bought 2 large toys, a robot for her eldest and a doll for her youngest. Holding the paper bags, she felt a unique kind of happiness. This was the fruit of her own labor. This was proof that she could stand on her own 2 feet. A few weeks later, during an event for Starlight Kitchen's distributors, Mei Lin was busy talking to new clients. Success was within reach. She was happy, content, until a familiar shadow fell over her. "Mei Lin." She stopped breathing. That voice. Slowly, she turned around. Standing before her was Marcus, her ex-husband. He looked thinner, and there was a sadness in his eyes she had never seen before. "Marcus, what are you doing here?" He didn't answer right away. He looked around, at the Starlight Kitchen banners, at the people congratulating Mei Lin. I'm happy for you, Mei Lin. You've really succeeded." "I had to," was Mei Lin's simple reply, a hint of coldness in her voice. Marcus stepped closer, his voice almost a whisper. "That's why I'm here. Be careful, Mei Lin." "What do you mean?" "My mother," Marcus said, fear in his eyes. "I know she knows about this, and she won't let you be happy. She won't stop." Marcus's warning lingered in Mei Lin's mind, like a ghost. She won't stop. She knew it was true. She had seen the determination in Marcus's eyes, a mixture of fear and regret. So, in the following days, Even as Starlight Kitchen continued to rise, a part of her was always waiting, always watching, anticipating the first blow. And it came. She was in the middle of inspecting their new central kitchen, a facility she was proud of for its cleanliness and order, when her phone suddenly vibrated. A notification from a popular online gossip site. The headline, written in big, red letters, felt like a punch to the gut. Scandal at Starlight Kitchen. Secret ingredient sourced from filth? Her hands went cold. She opened the link. There was an article full of baseless accusations from an alleged former employee. It claimed that the preparation process for the heritage stew was unsanitary, that they were skimping on ingredients, and that there were incidents of food poisoning being covered up. Every word was poison. Her hard work, her grandmother's legacy, the name she had built from the ashes, all of it was being mercilessly destroyed in a few paragraphs. Maylin. She turned. Denise was standing beside her, her face calm but her eyes sharp. She was also holding her own phone. "I've seen it," she said. "This is her opening salvo. Predictable, but vicious." "What are we going to do?" Maylin asked, her voice trembling. The employees around them were starting to whisper, their faces full of concern. "We do nothing," Denise answered. "For now, we continue working. We ensure our standards are impeccable. Let them throw their baseless accusations. We will fight them with the truth." But they weren't done. That afternoon, while they were in the middle of production, the kitchen doors burst open. A group of people in uniform from the Singapore Food Agency, SFA, entered, carrying papers and an air of authority. "Surprise health inspection," said the one leading them, his voice cold and official. "We received a complaint about your facility." Everyone froze. The noise of the machinery seemed to quiet down. Mei Lin, despite knowing her kitchen was clean, felt a surge of panic. What if they planted something? What if they found a way to create a basis for their lies? But before she could speak, Denise stepped forward. "Of course. Welcome to Starlight Kitchen," she said, her voice professional and without a trace of nervousness. "Please, do your inspection. My quality assurance manager will assist you. We have nothing to hide. In fact, we welcome this." Mei Lin watched how Denise managed the situation. She calmly showed them all their certifications, the cleanliness logbooks, and the CCTV footage that showed their meticulous process from start to finish. Every question from the inspectors was answered with confidence and evidence. After nearly 2 hours of thorough investigation, the SFA inspectors left without finding a single violation. But Mei Lin and Denise knew the damage had been done. The news of the surprise inspection would surely spread. The next day, as expected, they were in the news again. But this time, Denise was ready. She called for an immediate press conference. In front of the cameras and reporters, Denise stood, not to defend, but to attack. "Yesterday, Starlight Kitchen became the victim of a dirty and malicious black propaganda campaign," she began. "Today, we are here to show you the truth." One by one, Denise showed the evidence on a large screen. The clean results of the SFA inspection, testimonies from their loyal suppliers, and CCTV footage of their food-grade processes. Then, she called Mei Lin to the stage. Mei Lin's knees were shaking, but when she saw the trust in Denise's eyes, she found her strength. "My name is Mei Lin Tan," she said into the microphone, her voice soft but clear. "Starlight Kitchen is not just a business to me, it is my grandmother's story. It is the future of my children. I will not allow something built from love and honesty to be destroyed by lies." Her simple words, filled with emotion and truth, seemed to resonate more with the audience than all the technical explanations. After the press conference, as they were leaving the hall, a woman in a cleaner's uniform approached them. She looked scared, glancing around nervously. "Ma'am Mei Lin," she whispered. "I used to work at Go Consolidated." Mei Lin and Denise exchanged a look. The woman handed a folded piece of paper to Mei Lin. "I saw this in the trash bin near Mrs. Eleanor Go's office. I don't know what it is, but maybe it can help." The woman quickly left before Mei Lin could even thank her. Mei Lin unfolded the paper. It was an old photocopy, blurry but clearly a page from an old ledger. There were dates from the 1970s, and next to a list of ingredients almost identical to those in the heritage stew, a name was written, Lim Ah Gek, her grandmother's name. Tucked in with the paper was another small sticky note, seemingly left intentionally. It read, "She doesn't just want to destroy you, she wants to take back the recipe." The Go residents felt colder now than ever before. Or maybe that was just how it felt to Marcus. Since Mei Lin left, the mansion had lost its soul. The halls were vast and empty. The silence was broken only by the soft footsteps of the helpers and the cold commands of his mother. He sat in his leather armchair, holding a glass of expensive whiskey, but he wasn't drinking it. His eyes were fixed on his tablet screen, watching the replay of Mei Lin's press conference. He saw the courage in her eyes, a courage he had never seen when they were together. He saw the dignity in her posture as she said that Starlight Kitchen was the future of their children. Every word she spoke felt like a slap to his manhood. He should have been there. He should have been the one defending them, but he did nothing. A familiar pang of regret twisted in his chest again. Ever since he saw Mei Lin at that event, he couldn't find peace. Her success was a mirror to his cowardice. Turn that off. The voice of Mrs. Eleanor Go came from behind him. He hadn't even noticed her enter the library. You'll gain nothing from watching that woman. She's doing well, Ma, Marcus said, not taking his eyes off the screen. She's happy. Don't be fooled, Marcus. That is just a show, his mother replied, bitterness in her tone. But don't worry, all things come to an end. Mrs. Go left, but her last words left a bad feeling in Marcus. This wasn't just the anger of a former mother-in-law. There was something else, an obsession he couldn't understand. Why was his mother so interested in a small business? That night, on his way to the kitchen for a glass of water, he passed by the old office of his grandfather Veles, Mrs. Go's father. The door was slightly ajar. He heard his mother's voice inside, talking to her lawyer on the phone. Black propaganda is not enough. We need to prove that the original recipe is ours, Mrs. Go said firmly. Find all the old documents from Veles Foods. We need to find any evidence that proves it came from us, the original recipe. That's when Marcus began to suspect. This wasn't just about destroying Mei Lin. It was about owning the very source of her success. The next day, while his mother was out, Marcus went back to his grandfather's office. The room was rarely opened, smelling of old paper and dust. The furniture was covered with white cloths. He approached the large bookshelf, filled with old books and folders. As he searched, a memory suddenly came back to him from the early years of his marriage to Mei Lin. One afternoon, Mei Lin had cooked the heritage stew. Its aroma had brought life to the cold kitchen. They were happy then. Suddenly, Mrs. Go had entered. "What is that provincial smell?" she had asked snidely. But behind the insult, Marcus had seen something strange in his mother's eyes. A sharp observation. She had watched Mei Lin's every move as she cooked, as if memorizing it, analyzing it. At first, he thought it was just her way of finding fault. Now, he thought there might be another reason. Behind a row of encyclopedias, he saw a small door, a walk-in vault. It wasn't locked. He entered. Inside were boxes of old papers. In a corner, there was a small wooden chest with carved designs. It was locked. Using an old letter opener, he forced the rusty lock open. It creaked open. Inside, under yellowed land titles and stock certificates, was a thin photo album. He opened it. Old photos. A young, smiling Eleanor. Pictures of Veles Foods in its early days. And on the last page, there was an unfamiliar photo. A woman in her 40s, smiling as she stirred a large pot in a simple, rustic kitchen. Her smile was full of joy and pride. Behind her, standing by the doorway, was a teenage girl, her face serious, watching. Marcus recognized the teenager. It was his mother, but what made him stop breathing was the woman who was cooking. She looked familiar. He snatched his wallet and took out a faded photo he always carried with him, the only photo he had with Mei Lin's grandmother from their wedding day. They were identical. The woman in the photo was none other than Ma Lim. He was holding the evidence, the proof that his mother had known about the recipe for a long time, that this was no coincidence. Marcus froze where he stood. He slowly turned around. Standing at the vault's entrance was his mother, Mrs. Eleanor Go. Her face was emotionless, but her eyes were as cold as ice. She saw the album and the photo he was holding. There are some things you should not dig up, Marcus. To escape the weight of the problems caused by Mrs. Go, Mei Lin invited Denise to have dinner in Bedok. For a change of pace, Mei Lin had said on the phone, "You should try Auntie Sue's cooking. It's even better than my heritage stew." Denise agreed. And that evening, for the first time, Mei Lin saw a Denise Leong who was far from the image of a CEO. She arrived in a simple blouse and trousers, with no trace of makeup, and her hair was let down. At Auntie Sue's small dining table, on a wooden surface covered with a floral tablecloth, they shared a meal of hot fish soup and fried fish. The air was filled with laughter. Denise, who was always serious and formal at the office, seemed lighter. She listened to Auntie Sue's stories about Mei Lin's childhood and would occasionally smile, a smile that reached her eyes. Mei Lin felt a strange happiness. Despite all the trouble, here they were, like a small, unusual family. "Your cooking is delicious, Auntie," Denise said while sipping the soup. "It's been a long time since I've tasted this." A distant memory seemed to surface, but it quickly faded. "Yeah, it's nothing. La," Auntie Sue replied cheerfully, her eyes twinkling as she watched Denise. "You know, I was just thinking, would you like to see our old photos, so you can see where this Mei Lin really came from?" "Yes, Auntie, I would love that," Denise answered. After dinner, Auntie Sue brought out a thick, old photo album. Its cover was a bit faded, but obviously well kept. The three of them sat on a mat on the floor and began flipping through the pages. There were photos of Mei Lin as a baby, chubby and always smiling, her first day of school, her graduation. Each photo came with a story that Auntie Sue happily shared. Denise listened quietly, a small smile always on her lips, until they reached a particular page. In the middle was a photo that had yellowed with age, a younger Auntie Sue, perhaps in her early 20s. Her hair was long, her eyes showed a hint of weariness but were full of love. And in her arms was a sleeping baby, wrapped in a white cloth. The world stopped. Denise stared at the photo. The smile on her lips slowly faded. She slowly raised her hand and touched the necklace that was always around her neck, a thin silver chain with a small, star-shaped pendant. She rarely took it off. It was the only thing she had left from her birth mother, according to the family who adopted her. The baby in the photo, amidst the blurry image, was wearing an identical necklace. "This," Denise's voice broke. Where did you get this photo?" Mei Lin noticed the sudden change in the atmosphere. The earlier joy was replaced by a heavy tension. She looked at Auntie Sue and saw tears forming in her aunt's eyes. "Auntie?" Mei Lin asked. Auntie Sue didn't answer. She slowly caressed the photo, her fingers trembling. "That child," she began, her voice cracking, "that is the biggest regret and the greatest love of my life." She looked at Denise, and in her eyes was a torrent of sadness and longing that she seemed to have hidden for 30 years. "When I was a young woman, Mei Lin, I had a child, a beautiful baby girl. I named her Diwa." Mei Lin froze. She looked from Auntie Sue to Denise, who was now deathly pale. "I was so young then," Auntie Sue continued, tears flowing freely down her cheeks. "We had nothing. Her father passed away. I didn't know how I was going to raise her. The thought of her going hungry, of me not being able to give her the life she deserved, it broke my heart," she sobbed. "One night, a wealthy family who couldn't have children pleaded with me. They promised they would give her a good life, a good future. It hurt so much. But for her, I did it. I gave her away." Denise stood up, her eyes wide with disbelief. Her breathing was heavy. She clutched her necklace as if it were the only thing keeping her from collapsing. "That necklace," Auntie Sue said, her voice barely a whisper. "That is the pair to the bracelet I'm wearing now. I had them made before I gave you up, so that wherever you went, you would always have a piece of my love with you." Auntie Sue raised her hand, showing an old, thin silver bracelet with the same star design. The truth exploded in the middle of the small living room like a bomb. The CEO who had helped Mei Lin was not a stranger. The woman she admired was not just a business partner. Denise Leong was her cousin, Auntie Sue's long-lost daughter. The shock on Denise's face was replaced by a whirlwind of emotions, confusion, pain, anger, and a profound sadness. 30 years. For 30 years, she had lived thinking she had been abandoned. For 30 years, she had been searching for answers. Denise shook her head. "No, this can't be." She looked from the crying Auntie Sue to the photograph, then to Mei Lin. It was all too fast, too much. "Denise, wait." Mei Lin tried to hold her arm, but Denise pulled away as if she'd been burned. "Don't," she said, her voice shaking. I need some air." In a flash, she turned and walked quickly out the door. The sound of the door closing echoed in the silence, followed by the quick start of her car's engine. Mei Lin and a sobbing Auntie Sue were left in the living room, next to a photo album that held a secret that had changed all of them. The days after that night were shrouded in a deafening silence. Denise didn't call. She didn't answer Mei Lin's calls or texts either. At the office, her secretary said Denise had taken an indefinite leave. With each passing day, Mei Lin's heart grew heavier, not just for the business, but for a family she had just met that seemed to be falling apart again. Auntie Sue was perpetually sad, her eyes always seeming to be waiting. And in the midst of this personal turmoil, Mrs. Go's second attack came, more cunning, more formal, and more lethal. One afternoon, as Mei Lin sat alone in the conference room, trying to manage the operations suddenly left to her, a courier delivered a thick brown envelope. It had the seal of a prominent law firm. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside, the words on the legal paper were like snakes slithering before her eyes. Civil case, number 253. Go Consolidated versus Mei Lin Tan and Starlight Kitchen Foods. Charge: intellectual property theft and unlawful use of a corporate-owned recipe. Mei Lin stood up, her breath caught in her throat. Theft? She had stolen her own grandmother's recipe? Along with the summons were copies of evidence, old documents bearing the seal of Velis Foods from the 1970s, sworn affidavits from former employees testifying that the heritage stew was an experimental company recipe, a detailed narrative of how Mei Lin's grandmother, allegedly just a simple kitchen helper at the time, had tried to claim the recipe as her own. Lies. It was all lies. But the documents looked official. The dates looked credible. It was a perfectly fabricated truth. The next day, in the office of Asia Delights' lawyer, Mei Lin's remaining hope crumbled. Their lawyers are good, said Mr. Rajan, an older man with a serious face, as he reviewed the documents. Their evidence, even though we know it's fake, is very strong on paper. There are dates, signatures, testimonies, whereas all we have is an old notebook and your family story. He looked at her with pity. In court, Miss Tan, evidence speaks, not always the truth. Those words were a sentence. News of the lawsuit spread like wildfire. This time, it wasn't just gossip on a blog. It was a legitimate case, and in the eyes of the public and the business world, where there's smoke, there's likely fire. The downfall began. The office phone rang non-stop. Investors who once praised her were now questioning and threatening. A major supermarket chain, their partner, sent an email. We will be temporarily pulling out all Starlight Kitchen products from our shelves pending the result of this legal case. Sales plummeted. Orders were cancelled. Starlight Kitchen, the star of her hope, was slowly dying. One night, Mei Lin was left alone in the office. She looked out the window at the lights of Raffles Place, once a symbol of her new beginning, but now they seemed to mock her failure. She was surrounded by sales charts drenched in red, by cancellation notices, by the ghost of a shattered dream. Everything was gone, her husband, her children, and now her business, her only hope of getting them back. She buried her head in her arms on the desk, and there, in the silence, she sobbed without a sound. The fight isn't over. A familiar voice broke the silence. Mei Lin slowly lifted her head. Standing at the door was Denise. Her hair was a bit messy. Her eyes still held a trace of sadness, but her posture was resolute. Denise, I'm sorry I disappeared, Denise said, walking towards her. I just needed to think. I needed to accept everything. She stopped in front of her. That woman, Mrs. Go, she isn't just destroying your business. She is desecrating the memory of your grandmother, our grandmother, and she is hurting my mother. She looked into Mei Lin's eyes, and in that moment, Mei Lin saw something stronger than a business partnership. She saw blood, family. I'm not leaving you, Mei Lin, Denise said firmly. Whatever happens, we're family, and we are not going to lose. Amidst her despair, a small ember of hope rekindled in Mei Lin's heart. She was no longer alone. Suddenly, Mei Lin's phone rang. An unknown number. Hesitantly, she answered it. Hello, Mei Lin. It was Marcus. His voice on the other end was different. It wasn't the weak voice she was used to hearing. It was filled with urgency and fear. I was at my mother's office. I heard something. I saw something. Mei Lin, we need to meet. Marcus. What? Meet me at the Kopitiam Tenang, just outside Bedok. Now. I have something to give you, Marcus said, his voice almost a whisper. It will destroy my mother, but it will save you. And the line went dead. Kopitiam Tenang was a small coffee shop by the side of the expressway, just a few kilometers from Bedok. Its name, meaning calm, was a stark irony to what Mei Lin was feeling as she drove there, with Denise in the passenger seat. There was no peace in her heart, only a raging storm of anxiety, hope, and fear. They found Marcus alone at a table in the furthest corner of the coffee shop. He was hunched over, staring at a cup he hadn't touched. When he saw them, he quickly stood up, his face filled with anxiety. Thank you for coming, he said, his voice trembling. We don't have much time. Without preamble, Marcus placed an old, thick, leather-bound journal on the table. Its cover bore the initials A.V. Amadeo Velis, his grandfather. I was in my mother's office earlier, Marcus explained, quickly and in a whisper. I heard her talking to her lawyer. They're preparing for the final hearing. She said, make sure nothing personal from Papa's vault gets out. That's when I remembered what I saw before. I went back. He looked into Mei Lin's eyes, and for the first time, Mei Lin saw profound regret and determination. I've been a coward for so long, Mei-Lin. I've let her control me for so long. But not anymore. I won't let her destroy your grandmother's memory and our children's future. He opened the journal to a bookmarked page. Read this. Read. Mei-Lin and Denise leaned in together. The handwriting was old but still clear. These were the words of Marcus's grandfather, written over 40 years ago. The 17th of October 1978. My Eleanor has found a rare talent. A cook from the provinces, this Lima Gek. Her heritage stew has a unique flavor that is sure to be a hit in the market. I told Eleanor to acquire the recipe, to pay whatever is necessary. But my daughter has grander ambitions. She said, why pay for something we can simply borrow and improve? She truly has a mind for business, my girl. With every word they read, the full picture of the deception slowly formed. The following pages detailed how Veles Foods had studied and modified the recipe, giving it a new name that never became popular, and eventually discarding it when it failed in the market. But the most damning evidence was the last paragraph in that series of entries. The 5th of January 1979. The cook has left. It seems she discovered our plan. Eleanor even tried to go after her, wanting to make her sign a document, stating that we own the rights to everything she cooked while in our employ. But she never showed up again. A small problem. Time will easily make it forgotten. This is it, Denise whispered, her eyes burning with anger and relief. This is the smoking gun that will finish them. Mei-Lin looked at Marcus. Why, Marcus? Why are you doing this? Because I have to, he answered, a bitter smile on his lips. For my children, so they will know, one day, that their father, even just once in his life, chose to do the right thing. He handed the journal to Mei-Lin. Fight for what's yours, Mei-Lin. I'm sorry for everything. Marcus turned and quickly walked out of the coffee shop, disappearing into the darkness before Mei-Lin could even reply. The next day, the day of the special stockholders meeting for Go Consolidated. It was called by Mrs. Eleanor Go for an important announcement. The formal takeover of the assets of the now bankrupt Starlight Kitchen. Mrs. Eleanor Go stood at the podium, in the midst of her triumphant speech. Her voice was filled with power as she laid out her plans. The board members and stockholders listened intently, and through legal due process, we have nullified the baseless claim on a recipe that legitimately belongs to the Veles family. Now, we will bring it back to its rightful home. Suddenly, the large doors at the back of the hall opened. All heads turned. Standing there were Mei-Lin and Denise. Mei-Lin wore a simple black dress. Denise was in her usual power suit. They walked down the central aisle with silence and determination. The whispers began. What is the meaning of this? Mrs. Go shouted, her expression shifting from triumph to irritation. Security! Get these women out of here! But before the guards could approach, Denise held up a document. As a significant shareholder of this corporation through Asia Delights Holdings, I have every right to be here, and we have something to share. In an instant, the large screen behind Mrs. Go, which had been displaying the Go Consolidated logo, flashed with an image, a close-up shot of the handwriting from Amadeo Veles's journal. Everyone was stunned. What is this nonsense? Mrs. Go said, her voice shaking. This is not nonsense, Mei-Lin said, her voice clear and steady, amplified by the microphone she held. This is the truth you have hidden for 40 years. One by one, Denise displayed the journal pages on the screen, while Mei-Lin read the words of Marcus's grandfather aloud and with emotion. The story of theft, of deception, of the abuse of a simple cook, whose only crime was to have a rare talent. The earlier admiration on the stockholders' faces turned to shock, then anger and disgust. Lies, that's all fabricated, Mrs. Go screamed desperately, her face turning pale. If it's a lie, Mother, then why do I have the original? A voice was heard from the side of the stage. A voice Mrs. Eleanor Go knew all too well. Marcus emerged from the shadows, holding the original journal. He looked at his mother, not with fear, but with pity. The game is over, Ma. It's time to face the truth. That was the final blow. The betrayal of her own son. In front of everyone, Mrs. Eleanor Go screamed, a cry of defeat and madness. Her world crumbled, not on a rainy night, but under the bright lights of a truth of her own making. The fall of Mrs. Eleanor Go was as swift and loud as her rise to power. After Marcus's exposé, the conference hall erupted into chaos. Camera flashes went off non-stop. The media's questions were a cacophony, but Mrs. Go seemed to hear nothing. She just stood at the podium, her earlier power replaced by a blank stare. She was like a queen who had lost her kingdom in an instant. Amidst the chaos, Denise pulled Mei-Lin away from the stage, out through a side door. They didn't need to stay there any longer. The truth, their weapon, had done its job. In the car on the way home, a heavy silence hung between them. They were both processing everything that had happened. After a few minutes, Mei-Lin felt Denise take her hand. The grip was firm, full of gratitude and a deeper emotion. "I'm going home to Bedok tonight," Denise said softly, not looking at Mei-Lin but at the road ahead. I want to talk to Mum." The word Mum came out of Denise's mouth with a slight hesitation, but also with acceptance. Mei-Lin smiled. This was the real victory. Not the downfall of Go Consolidated, but the rebuilding of a family. The next day, a week before the scheduled final hearing that would no longer happen, Marcus called. He didn't use an unknown number this time. His voice was calm, but heavy. "Mei-Lin, can we talk?" he pleaded. "Just for a little while." For the last time, Mei-Lin agreed. They met at a small park, far from the eyes of the media and their chaotic world. They sat on a bench under a large rain tree. It was a long time before Marcus spoke, just watching the children playing in the distance. "Mum has lost everything," he finally said, his voice devoid of bitterness, only a sad acceptance of the truth. "The board forced her to resign. The partners are pulling out. The family name is destroyed." Mei-Lin said nothing, just letting him speak. "But you know what hurts the most?" He looked at her, and Mei-Lin saw tears welling in his eyes. "It's not the money or the company she's crying about. The thing she keeps repeating is, even Marcus, even my own son. She took him from me." A pang of sympathy hit Mei-Lin, not for herself, but for the man in front of her. "I didn't take you from her, Marcus," Mei-Lin replied softly. "You chose. For the first time, you chose for yourself." Marcus's tears fell. I wish I had done that sooner. I wish, on that night she kicked you out, I had fought for you. I wish I had been a man for you, for our children. Forgive me, Mei-Lin, for all my cowardice, for all the pain I caused you. I'm sorry." Mei-Lin looked at her ex-husband. The anger she had held for so long, the pain of betrayal, all of it seemed to slowly dissipate. All she saw now was a lost person, a person who regretted his mistakes, a person who finally learned to stand up for what was right, even if it was too late. Slowly, Mei-Lin took off her wedding ring, the last symbol of their past that she still wore on a chain around her neck as a reminder. She placed it in Marcus's palm. "I forgave you a long time ago, Marcus," she said, and as she uttered those words, she felt an extraordinary lightness. "I forgave you, not for your sake, but for mine, so I could be free from the pain, so I could start again." She looked into his eyes. "Be a good father to our children. That's all that matters now." She stood up to leave. "Mei-Lin," Marcus called out. "Where are you going?" Mei-Lin turned back, a small, peaceful smile on her lips. Home. When she returned to the office, it was quiet. The phones were no longer ringing with cancellations. The emails were starting to fill with messages of support. She stood before the large glass window, just as she had on the night she had almost given up. She watched the sunset over the city. But now, the lights that were slowly coming on were no longer mocking. They were like stars, greeting her. The weight she had carried for so long, the need to prove herself, the anger, the desire to win, all of it was gone. It was replaced by a deep and tranquil quiet. She was free, not because she had won the battle, but because she had learned to forgive, and in that forgiveness, she found true peace. Suddenly, her phone rang. A text message, a photo of her 2 children, smiling widely, with Marcus at a simple chalet. Below it was a short message. "We're waiting for you, Mummy." 1 year. 1 year had passed. Starlight Kitchen, once on the brink of collapse, was now a household name across the country. It wasn't just a food brand, it had become a symbol of resilience. The story of Mei-Lin Tan, the woman who was cast out, fought a corporate giant, and one with the truth, became an inspiration. Mei-Lin stood on a stage, not for a product launch, but for the opening of something much closer to her heart, the Starlight Foundation, an organization she founded to help single mothers start their own small businesses. The hall was filled with women, media, and business partners. The atmosphere was full of hope. "Many people ask me how I managed to get through it all," Mei-Lin began, her voice calm and full of confidence, a far cry from the trembling voice she once had. "The truth is, I don't know how to answer that in just one word. But perhaps it all started when I learned to accept that sometimes you truly need to be broken in order to be whole again." She looked at the faces of the women before her, faces that held stories of hardship but glittered with hope. We all have stars in our hearts. Sometimes they are covered by the clouds of fear, of failure, of pain. We think they will never shine again. But the truth is, the star is always there. It's just waiting for the right moment to shine again. Starlight Kitchen and this foundation are my way of telling you, don't be afraid of the dark, because that is often where the light of a star shines brightest. The crowd applauded. From the side of the stage, Denise and Auntie Sue watched her, smiling, standing side by side. Their eyes were filled with pride. That evening, in her new house, not as big as the Go residence, but overflowing with warmth and love, Mei Lin sat quietly on her sofa, watching her children play happily in the garden. The custody case had long been settled. They had shared custody with Marcus, an arrangement they both agreed on for the children's well-being. The postman came and handed her a letter. The postmark was from a rural area in Malaysia. The handwriting was familiar. It was from Marcus. It was his second letter in a year. She opened it. Mei Lin, how are you all? I hope you are well. Things are fine here. The vegetables I planted are starting to bear fruit. The children in the village are delighted with the small library I've started to build. Simple things, but they bring peace. Not a day goes by that I don't think about everything that happened. The regret is always here, but I no longer let it be a poison. I use it as a reminder to be a better person every day. That's probably the only way I can fully forgive myself. I saw in the newspaper about your foundation. I am proud of you, Mei Lin. I always was. I just never said it. Take care of yourself, and please tell the children that Papa loves them very much. Sincerely, Marcus. Mei Lin carefully folded the letter and kept it in a small box filled with memories, a box of a past that had been forgiven. She smiled, a peaceful smile. No more pain, no more anger, only acceptance. Deep in thought, our star, said a voice. Denise came out onto the patio, carrying 2 mugs of hot Milo. Behind her was Auntie Sue. Ah, girl, here is your favorite snack, Auntie Sue said to Denise, fixing her hair like a true mother. The relationship between the two had completely healed over the year, built on patience, understanding, and an unconditional love. Thanks, Ma, Denise replied, before turning to Mei Lin. The launch was a success earlier. So many people want to pledge their support to the foundation. Thanks to you, Mei Lin said. I couldn't have done it without you, all of us, Denise corrected, smiling. Family, they chatted as they watched the setting sun. The conversation was light and full of laughter. As Denise was about to leave, she suddenly stopped and turned to Mei Lin with a mischievous smile. By the way, she said, I noticed at the event earlier, our new head chef seemed to be smiling at you more sweetly than the heritage stew. Mei Lin's cheeks flushed. Denise, you and your wild imagination. Why? What's wrong with that? Denise laughed. Chef Julian is handsome, and more importantly, he seems like a kind person. You deserve to be happy again, cousin. Denise winked at her before finally leaving. Mei Lin was left on the patio, her heart fluttering strangely as the memory of Chef Julian's warm smile suddenly entered her mind. The aroma of freshly cooked heritage stew once again filled the air. But this time, it wasn't coming from a small stall by the roadside. It was coming from a spacious, modern kitchen, where the laughter was louder than the sound of ladles and pots. It was the 2nd anniversary of Starlight Kitchen, and to celebrate, Mei Lin decided to host a simple get-together at her home. The guests were just her family. Mummy, I'll chop the onions, her eldest son said cheerfully, now taller and more confident. Careful, dear, Mei Lin reminded him, while helping her youngest stir the sauce in a small bowl. In a corner of the kitchen, Denise and Auntie Sue were laughing as they prepared a mango salad. Their relationship was no longer awkward. It was natural, full of affection, as if they had never been separated for 3 decades. Diwa, dear, add a little more shrimp paste, Auntie Sue said. Ma, it might get too salty, Denise replied, but she obeyed anyway, a loving smile on her lips. Mei Lin watched them, her heart filled with an immense gratitude. This was the family that was built, not just by blood and surname, but by trials, forgiveness, and unconditional love. This was her true wealth, not the big house, not the successful company, but this simple moment. The doorbell rang. I'll get it, the children shouted and raced each other to the door. When they returned, they were with a guest Mei Lin hadn't expected, but had secretly hoped for. Chef Julian, Mei Lin greeted, unable to hide the slight blush on her cheeks. Mei Lin, Julian greeted back, his eyes smiling. He was carrying a bouquet of simple white flowers and a cake. Happy anniversary to Starlight, and to you. Oh, you shouldn't have, Mei Lin said. It's no trouble, Julian replied. It's an honor. The dinner was happy and noisy. They talked about new plans for the company, the children's funny experiences at school, and dreams for the future. Under the table, Mei Lin felt Julian's fingers gently brush against her hand. She didn't pull away. Instead, she let it rest there, a quiet promise of a new beginning. After dinner, while the children were busy with the cake and Denise and Auntie Sue were having coffee, Mei-Lin and Julian stepped out into the garden. The night was cool, and the sky was full of stars. "You know," Julian began, "when I first met you at your foundation's launch, the first thing I noticed wasn't your business acumen." "What was it then?" Mei-Lin asked. "Your eyes," Julian answered. There was still sadness there, but behind the sadness, there was a fire that no storm could put out. He looked at her. "Now, the sadness is gone. All I see is the fire, and it's brighter than ever." Mei-Lin was speechless. Julian's words touched her heart. "Mei-Lin, I know you've been through a lot," he continued, "and I'm not in a hurry, but I just want you to know that I'm willing to wait. I'm willing to be your friend first, or whatever you need." For the first time in a very long time, Mei-Lin felt a different kind of thrill. A thrill born not of need, but of joyful hope. She smiled, a genuine and free smile. "Thank you, Julian. Maybe we can start with a cup of coffee tomorrow." The smile on Julian's face was as bright as the moon. "Tomorrow. I'll be waiting for that." Mei-Lin was left alone in the garden. She looked up at the star-filled sky. The air was fresh. The night was peaceful. She had found herself. She had found her family. And maybe, just maybe, she had also found the beginning of a new love. She was no longer the woman crying in the rain. She was no longer the wife seeking acceptance. She was no longer the victim thirsty for justice. She was Mei-Lin, a mother, a daughter, a friend, a leader, a woman forged by her dreams and strengthened by her scars. And like a star, her light would never dim again. And here ends the story of Mei-Lin of Starlight Kitchen, the recipe for resilience, a story that taught us that true strength is not measured by wealth or power, but by the ability to rise after falling. Mei-Lin showed us that forgiveness is not for the person who hurt us, but for our own peace, and most of all, she reminded us that every one of us, no matter how dark our past, has a star waiting to shine again. Thank you very much for your unwavering support of this story. We hope you found inspiration and lessons in Mei-Lin's journey. What was your favorite part of the story, and what kind of story would you like to hear next? Just comment below. We always read your suggestions. Our journey does not end here. There are many more stories just as beautiful and full of lessons here on our channel. If you liked this story, please like, share with your family and friends, and subscribe to stay updated on our next stories. Click the notification bell so you'll be the first to hear when we have a new upload. May God bless you and your entire family. Until next time.